Carving It Up is back tonight with a show that is chocked full of college football from start to finish. It's going to start the show talking about Arch Manning, why I think there's going to be a little bit of a market correction. A lot of hype coming in. Rough performance against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Talk about that to start the show. Also want to get into LSU's huge win in Death Valley against Clemson. Why I think this win was not just huge for Brian Kelly, but massive for the SEC moving forward in terms of their to try and continue their dominance as a conference. Talk about that. Alabama. Oh, what is going on? Crimson Tide losing in an upset on the road badly to the Florida State Seminoles. Is this a sign that Florida State's back, or is this a sign that Kalen DeBoer, as great of a coach as I think he is, may not fit the culture in Tuscaloosa, Alabama? Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst will join the show to preview a brand new college football podcast show that we're going to talk about on the show in 45 minutes. And at the end, Bill Belichick, why we need to see immediate results from him in North Carolina. Carving Up is loaded. College football, start to finish. Drop the beat, baby. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on X, Instagram, and on Facebook. I am Bryson Carver. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Happy Labor Day to everyone out there. Hope y'all are enjoying your day off. We've got, I don't know if we've had this many shows in the past where it has been literally start to finish college football. Unless some big NFL breaking news comes in. I know that Sean McVay announced that Matthew Stafford is going to start the opening game against the Texans, but we kind of knew that. Unless anything huge comes in or anything crazy, this is going to be a college football show from start to finish. Speaking of which, you heard me say in the promo there, Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst, both of which are key members of the Gryd Network. They will be stopping by in 45 minutes, where the three of us will announce a brand new show that we are adding to the Gryd Network this week. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. I'll obviously talk about LSU Clemson in a few minutes. Bama. Guys, listen, I don't want to take anything from Florida State. Their quarterback talked a big game in the offseason, and boy, did he back it up. Kudos to him. But Bama, what are we doing here? As a Vols fan who was very, very pleased with what I saw from my offense. I know Syracuse isn't like a dominant team in the ACC, but man, Joey Aguilar, looks like we may have upgraded at quarterback. I can say that. Talk more about that in the Vol on Friday. Obviously, Bill Belichick making his debut tonight with North Carolina against TCU. A TCU team, by the way, is favored in Chapel Hill. Talk about Bill, talk about the expectations and why he needs to live up to them right off the bat. Before I get to my first segment, I already got some comments up in here. Go Bucks, horns down. The Bama era is over. There you go. I think it's hilarious. Fans thought Bama was even competitive without Saban. Listen, and I'll talk about this in a half hour. I'm a Kalen DeBoer fan. I think he's one of the top coaches in college football. It's hard to defend right now. I think there's a reason why it's not working, and it's actually goes beyond X's and O's or recruiting or transfer portal, NIL, any of those things. So we'll get to that in a half hour on the show. But first, you know, there's a difference when you talk about an excuse and a reason. See, an excuse is if you say, you know, I was late to work today because I showed up or I left home 15 minutes after I was supposed to. That's an excuse. That's on you. What do you want me to do? A reason I was late to work, I was stuck in traffic. I didn't think it'd be this bad this morning. I remember there was one time going to work at and during the Disney College program. I literally, while I was stopped in traffic, went on my phone and said I was going to show up late. I ended up barely getting there on time because the traffic is bad. What are you going to do? You can't control those circumstances. So what I'm about to say, because I'm going to be critical, obviously, in a few minutes, of Arch Manning's performance against Ohio State in Texas's 14-7 loss to the Buckeyes, to the defending champion Buckeyes. Here are the reasons that he didn't play well. Absence play, which we will get to, because Arch did not play well. On the road, at Ohio State, the defending national champions. By the way, an Ohio State team that might have arguably the best defensive player in college football, and Caleb Downs, who was awesome. Yes, on Saturday against Texas. So there's that. Buckeyes, the defending national champions. The Horseshoe is one of the toughest places to go play. It's his first road start. His road start is in one of the most difficult places to play in college football. Like the whole bit, you bring that to the table. Those are the reasons, not excuses, reasons Arch didn't succeed. But the fact of the matter is this. Absent of that, Arch was bad. Arch did not play well at all. I mean, from his first snap of the game, I knew from that first play, I'll be honest. I mean, I didn't think it'd be this bad where Texas only scores one touchdown late in the fourth quarter. People didn't think it was a catch. I thought it was. I thought it was too close to overturn. But whatever the case may be, first play of the game. The guy's wide open the right side, and he dirts it. He skips it. He one-hops it to the guy. I'm like, ooh, that's not good. You got to put a lot more mustard in that. Like, at least give the guy a chance to make a play. Ball hits the turf at the feet of the receiver. Thinking, oh, that's not an ideal start, and it didn't get much better. I heard some commentators, including one of my favorites, shout out to Colin Cowherd, who said on his podcast the other day, Arch looked lost out there. Maybe this is the silver lining for Texas fans. And by the way, there's good silver lining. This is still an excellent football team. They're going to be fine. They got 3 cakewalk games until they play Florida in October. But when you look at when you look at Arch Manning, you say, he saw the field fine. He was throwing to the open guys. He was just wildly inaccurate. And there were moments late in the fourth quarter, really that scoring drive for Ohio State, the last drive where it's like, holy crap, they're going to go down and tie the game. This could be 14-14. We may get to overtime, and this may be I tweeted, the legend of Arch Manning begins on this drive. Bad for 3.5 quarters, great in the last 2 drives, and then you potentially could go and win the game in overtime and shock a lot of people. He saw the receivers fine. He was just wildly inaccurate. Looked at times like he was, again, he put too much air on some passes, would overthrow guys who were open or had enough separation on the Ohio State DBs. Again, dirtying it to the first receiver of the game. There's a play I thought was interesting. We don't have the rights to show the footage of the game on this show for copyright purposes. But there's a play late in the fourth quarter on Texas's last drive of the game. Okay? Final drive against Ohio State. You get 2 completions where it's all of a sudden, okay, you're down at the Ohio State. You're down at the Ohio State, or you're at midfield, actually. You're at your own 45-yard line, get a 5-yard run, you're at midfield. The play after that, the incomplete pass on the left side, dude's wide open. Again, I wish we had the rights to show the footage on the show, but the guy's got all kinds of separation. Then the third down, you've got a receiver coming across on a little crossing pattern, and you short it to him too. You throw it well behind the guy. So it's like, it's just this, the timing was off. Some of that you give credit to Matt Patricia. Some of that you give credit to the fact the kid's third ever start in his career. By the way, again, this would go more in the excuse category, but can we pump the brakes a little bit? Listen, I'm a Vols fan, so of course I'm going to be a pro Manning guy. Love me some Peyton Manning. I think he's Mount Rushmore of all-time quarterbacks easily. Eli won 2 Super Bowls. Their dad, Arch, was a legend at Ole Miss, and again, due to some bad O-lines, wasn't able to quite succeed in the NFL the way that folks thought he would at the time. But Arch is like the lineal heir. Is he going to live up to the Manning legacy? That, to me, was a more fun discussion than, again, somebody I have respect for in the business, Paul Feinbaum. Man, Arch, best college player since Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow, multi-time national champion, Heisman finalist, multi-time Heisman finalist. That Tim Tebow, who was a terrible NFL quarterback, was never going to succeed in the league because he couldn't throw. But in college, you can make a case Tim's the greatest college player ever. I think it's a joke that Florida has a retired number 15. A joke. But that's another discussion for another day. That's a little unrealistic. This idea, man, he's going to put Joe Burrow's 2019 season to shame. What? He started 2 games. One against Cornbread Western and one against Mississippi State, who might as well be Cornbread Western in the SEC. And again, I think the kid's going to bounce back. If you look at Texas's upcoming schedule, a lot of cakewalks. San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston. My guess is they're going to go in October 3-1 and be one of the 5 highest ranked teams in college football by that point. Then again, you got to go down to the Swamp in Gainesville. That's a tough place to go play. Texas is more talented than Florida, but that could be a back and forth. That's a tough place to go win. We know what DJ Lagway brings to the table as one of the top quarterbacks of the conference. So and this is why I said I thought Lenore Sellers was the best QB in the SEC. Garrett Nussmeier, you can make a case for, certainly at LSU. We'll talk about the Tigers in just a few minutes. But there was an element of deep breath, slow down. I think the kid's really talented. There's a reason he was a 5-star. There's a reason he was a top QB in his class, in his recruitment class. And there's a reason that the number 1 team in college football, a team that I think, along with Penn State, had the best roster in college football, is handing the kid the reins. Let's not forget that there were moments last season where when Quinn Ewers, who I was highly critical of, was playing poorly, fans in Austin were calling for Arch. Arch showed his mobility at times. Arch had moments here or there against a great Georgia defense last year in the second half when Quinn Ewers was injured. So, again, there's stuff there to look at and say, okay, he's closer to, I don't want to say the guy that folks thought he would be, because some folks had set the expectations to the ceiling, like, oh, Heisman runaway, but closer to the 5-star high school recruitment, lineal heir to the Manning throne guy than he is against Ohio State. My guess is if these two teams match up again in the college football playoff, he'll be much more prepared, a lot of film to go off of. And the best news for Arch is nowhere to go but up. It's hard to do much worse. We could go and show Arch's numbers. It's hard to do much worse than 170 passing yards. I don't think he had 100 until the fourth quarter. 1 touchdown, 1 pick, completing 56% of his throws, and had a 58 QBR. It's just not going to get the job done. Now, the good news for Texas is even against Matt Patricia, even against this great Ohio State defense, they moved the ball fine. First of all, they ran the football very effectively. They had 166 yards on the ground. We knew that would be a strength of Texas's offense. It's really kind of the lifeblood of Texas's offense is running the football. They did that effectively. They actually did it much better than Ohio State did. The difference of the game, couldn't cash it in the red zone. 3 red zone trips, 7 points, including 1 stop at the goal line, which was, if you're a Texas fan, like, oh my gosh, can we just not score from the 1 against Ohio State when you think about how they lost the Cotton Bowl to the Buckeyes in the playoff semifinal? Like, that's been kind of a bugaboo of theirs. But Texas is going to be fine. This is what's great about the 12-team playoff, is that we get games like this. We get great games that we saw all weekend. I mean, even last night, Notre Dame, Miami was fantastic fourth quarter finish. I thought Notre Dame was going to win for a while, but you get matchups like this, you get an opportunity for Arch Manning to be like, whew, this is a different monster. Like this is the Horseshoes, defending champions. They're raising the banner. Lee Corso, shout out Lee Corso, legend, doing his final headgear pick at midfield minutes before kickoff. Like, it's a big atmosphere. Now he should have played better. He's got to hit open receivers when they're there. But I wouldn't use this as an opportunity. The only people I would pile on today is not Arch Manning, but the folks that thought Arch Manning was going to be the second coming of Tim Tebow or the second coming of Joe Burrow. Like, he might be. Who knows? Who's to put it past the kid? Joe Burrow was an okay quarterback in 2018, had the greatest college football season ever by a quarterback in 2019. Like, he may get to that point. Sark's a brilliant coach. He's got great talent around him, and the kid's a 5-star with a great last name. He very well could reach that, but let's slow down just a little bit in terms of setting the expectations to the freaking roof. Because there are guys that we see, and I think Arch is a good player, don't get me wrong, but there's certain generationally talented quarterbacks and players that come along where it's like, oh, they don't even look like everybody else. By the way, I think you saw it on the other side of the field. He didn't have a huge game, but I think you saw on the other side of the field with Ohio State and Jeremiah Smith. Again, he had 6 catches for 43 yards, but just the physical ability. You saw with Julio Jones at the quarterback position. I remember the first time Trevor Lawrence took over, I forget, was it Kelly Bryant? I think was the quarterback that Trevor Lawrence took over for at Clemson. It's like, holy crap, he looks like an NFL quarterback right off the bat. I know he hasn't panned out the way that folks thought he would, but he doesn't look like everybody else. Caleb Williams, who I have high hopes for. Remember, he comes in relief for Spencer Rattler in the Red River rivalry game against Texas, and it's like, holy crap, who's this kid? That's hard to do. That's rare. So, again, best news for Arch, nowhere to go but up. So I think Texas is going to be just fine. Got some comments right here. Don't forget CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles, 100%. Patrick, who's, by the way, a big Florida State fan. We'll talk about Florida State in a minute. The hype around Arch Manning was not to be desired. Big away game and national spotlight. Like, that's, again, I picked Texas for the record. Like, I think Texas, they were my national championship pick coming in, and I'm not going to back off that after one game. Listen, look no further than the team Texas played. You can have one, I don't even want to call it a hiccup. They lost on the road in Autzen against Oregon. Like, it's by the skin of their teeth, by the way. Could have easily won that game. Lose to Oregon, it's like, hey, Ohio State's gonna, holy crap, they wet the bed against Michigan. Basically didn't have a quarterback capable of throwing a forward pass. Like, what? Ohio State, they're gonna make the playoff, but Tennessee's gonna, and then they mop my Vols. And then they mop Oregon, beat Texas, and then beat Notre Dame. That's the beauty of the 12-team playoff. If you're a team that talented, you can have a hiccup. And again, it's weird to call it that just because it was against Ohio State in the horseshoe. It's not like they lost to, Vanderbilt or something, but I think they're going to be fine in the long run. I really do. Shout out to Miami. No question about it. Listen, I was not high on Miami coming in. I still have some concerns, particularly about Carson Beck, who was good yesterday. You got to give him credit where it's due. But I still don't know if I buy them long-term as a real playoff contender. Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Brown. 2019 LSU Tigers had perennial NFL talent. To say Arch Manning will surpass that. Again, it's not fair to the kid. Like, forget what happens is when you have the folks, best player since Tim Tebow. What happens is folks become haters of Arch, right? Like, you have, what's a good example of this? I'm trying to think of like just overhyped athlete that got hate just because of the expectations and not based on what they did, good or bad. So I don't know. No one's coming off the top of my head right now. Yeah, I can't, honestly. I mean, I was thinking Trae Young, but Trae Young, because people compared Trae Young to Steph Curry, but it didn't get like out of control. Honestly, I think Caitlin Clark's got more comparisons to Steph Curry, and for good reason. She's fantastic. So yeah, but that's what happens is Arch Manning now has haters just because of folks putting unfair expectations on him, which is a bummer because I think we all know about the Mannings are class personified. There's no question. Here was Arch, by the way, after the loss to Ohio State.
Ultimately not good enough. Obviously, you don't want to start off the season 0-1. They're a good team, but I thought we beat ourselves a lot, and that starts with me, and I got to play better for us to win. Can't wait till the second half to kind of get things going.
Yeah, listen, he's 100% right. They did have good drives in the second half. They got the ball down inside the red zone. Where, obviously didn't convert at the 1, didn't convert in a fourth down inside the 10 in the fourth quarter. Had a good drive, second to last. Looked like the last drive had some promise, but then Arch missed some brutal throws on second and third down. So yeah, certainly not the debut that he was looking for. I did want to shift to LSU Clemson because this was kind of the second biggest game that we were all looking forward to for this weekend. So listen, by the way, 0 for 2 now for me. Before I even get to this game, speaking of picking college football games, how about Lee Corso? Right. I mean, listen, we understand 30-plus year career as really the face of College Game Day, in particular with the headgear picks, which he first started back in 1996. It was so beautiful. Like he says, when he was making his pick, obviously we all know who's going to pick Ohio State. Like it was only right. The fact that his first headgear pick was Brutus, putting on Brutus's head, Ohio State's mascot, and then he's at midfield and he says, "Give me my first love." So that was a really, really cool moment at the Horseshoe, and the fans were, obviously great in that moment as well. But Lee Corso, not only did he get his final headgear pick right, which was huge. That's a great way for the legend to go out. Every single team that he either played or coached for in college football won. And every single one of the 6 games he predicted, he got all 6 correct. There's level, sis. There's a reason he's on the level he's on. So shout out to Lee Corso. Real quick, also I see I just now checked Instagram, and I apologize to Ryan if Ryan's still on here. Ryan Flowers, my good friend and Clutch Sports Talk host. Let's see. He says, yeah, Manning had a tough game to open up with. They lost 14-7 at the Horseshoe. We're live on IG, so the reason I answer that comment late is because for some reason the streaming platform that I use only shows me YouTube, X, and Facebook comments on the app. I actually have to go to the separate tab to look at Instagram comments. So again, if I'm late in answering your Instagram comment, that's why that's the case. So, but still feel free to chime in because I do want to hear what you guys think. So let's get back to LSU Clemson. So listen, really impressed by what I saw from LSU. I picked them to go to the college football playoff this year in large part. Okay, very active in the transfer portal. I think they had the number one. Transfer class that came in during the offseason. We know they've got a ton of experience with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback. He's one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the SEC, probably one of the 2 best, along with my man Lenora Sellers. DJ Lagway's in that discussion. Joey Aguilar might be in that discussion before it's all said and done, but that's a different conversation for a different show. But at the end of the half, I'm thinking, okay, it's 10-3 Clemson. Feels like they got the momentum. LSU's putting together a drive. They've got a 4th down in the red zone. 4th down and 2, 15 seconds left, no timeouts. And again, this is I love college football. Oh, I love college football so much. And, just a tease for a half hour from now, big announcement regarding myself and my 2 guests as it pertains to college football. Love college football. Love it. But it's the stuff like this that makes me prefer the NFL more. Is just basic coaching decisions in regards to clock management. Brian Kelly, who I'm about to give a lot of love in just a second, but let's call it like it is. Brian Kelly, 15 seconds left. LSU down in the red zone, obviously well within field goal range. No timeouts. Down to 10-3, and they go for it. They don't get it. By the way, unless it was a touchdown, even if they did get it, they probably wouldn't have had time to run one more play, and they would just kick the field goal anyway. Like, Nick Sirianni made a similar decision in a Philadelphia and Rams game in the regular season at the end of the half. It wasn't quite apples to apples, but somewhat similar, where it's like fourth down in field goal range, but you don't have any timeouts into the half. Like, it's just basic clock management that Brian Kelly's not alone in this. A lot of college coaches, even the best, the Kirby Smarts of the world, have bungled the clock on more than one occasion to the level that an NFL coach just wouldn't. So after I saw that play, I'm like, oh my God, I'm just blowing it. Like, Clemson's going to win this thing. And LSU shuts out the Tigers in the second half. They shut out Cade Klubnik, who I said coming in I thought was the best quarterback in college football. Well, Cade Klubnik yesterday, you look at his numbers, nothing to go crazy about. 230 pass yards, completed 50% of his throws, and had a pick. A bad pick in the fourth quarter, for that matter. So here's what I think is, first of all, for Brian Kelly, this is year 4. Part of the reason I picked LSU to get in the playoff is because it is year 4. Brian Kelly, you left Notre Dame to get that SEC talent. Your replacement, Marcus Freeman, just went to a national championship and is having, again, the last night's loss notwithstanding, Notre Dame's going to be a great team this year. Having a lot of success with the Fighting Irish. Kind of need to see some results at this point. You got to an SEC championship year 1, but you took 2 steps back. Had some brutal losses at the end of last year to teams you shouldn't have lost to. Like, we need to have some big wins for the Tigers, and you got one. He was 0 for 3 in his first 3 opening games at LSU. I know he lost to Florida State on a blocked point after attempt. Last year, they lost to USC, who ended up being a very average football team in the Big Ten. Like, you got to start winning these big games, and he did, and LSU's able to close. So for Brian Kelly, it's huge. I got to say, as a fan of the Southeastern Conference, as a diehard Tennessee Vols fan, even as someone who picked Clemson to win this game, and I've been critical of Dabo Swinney. I've mentioned how I've not been a fan of many of his decisions in the past, to put it mildly, but I was happy LSU won for this simple reason. They saved the SEC from pretty, I don't want to say an embarrassing weekend, but a continuation of a really alarming trend for the Southeastern Conference. Like, there's almost this element of, now if there's conference realignment and NIL, now the SEC ain't as dominant. It's, back in the day when SEC teams in Alabama were paying kids under the table, right, and doing some really shady business. Ole Miss ended up getting caught for doing it. Hugh Freeze, who's now at Auburn now, got a big win against Baylor, but SEC was doing some shady business. They tried to act all pure and all self-righteous. Oh, how could you pay these players? What, like you've been doing illegally? Jeremy Pruitt, by the way. Thank God this happened, by the way. Jeremy Pruitt, former coach of my Vols, got fired for that very reason. And thank God he did, because Josh Heupel is the man, as we all know, in Knoxville. But back to the point. NIL, conference realignment, kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. That's why I think college football is all the more interesting these last couple of years. SEC's kind of gotten their butt kicked by other conferences as of late. Let's just go back. So we'll go back as far as 2 years ago. Bama lost at home in Bryant-Denny Stadium to Texas. But Nick Saban was still there. That was when Texas was still in the Big 12. Texas was not in the SEC yet. They lost to Texas. And in the last year, Bama lost to Florida. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Bama lost to Florida State, unranked Florida State, on the road by 2 scores. Yikes. Bama lost to Michigan in the college football playoff semifinal in a game that they led in the fourth quarter. Georgia lost in the Sugar Bowl to Notre Dame in the college football playoff quarterfinal. Texas lost to Ohio State twice, once in a game that they could have easily won in the Cotton Bowl, college football playoff semifinal. And then on Saturday, lost a game in which they actually outplayed Ohio State offensively in terms of moving the football, running the football, just couldn't cash in the red zone when they absolutely had to. South Carolina, who I think is going to be a playoff team this year. I'm a Lenora Sellers believer through and through. Lost to Illinois last year in a bowl game. Texas A&M lost to USC. Again, a very mid-USC team in a bowl game. LSU, to go back to some of Brian Kelly's week 1 struggles, lost to USC in Las Vegas last year. Again, we saw what USC ended up being. Very average in the Big Ten. So the SEC's kind of had a brutal streak as of late. They have. There's kind of this growing sentiment like, okay, the Big Ten's the best conference. They've had the last 2 national champions. Again, Ohio State, my guess is they're probably going to come out as the number 1 team in the top 25 polls tomorrow. Michigan's back. Oregon was the number 1 team in college football last year. Penn State can win the Natty. Not that the SEC doesn't have real contenders, but the Big Ten objectively has a 1-up right now in the Southeastern Conference. The question is, because I don't think the Big 12 is in the SEC's league. There's no question. The question is, well, was the ACC catching up? Florida State beat Bama, but LSU beat Clemson. The goal right now for the SEC, hold off the ACC and get back on the level with the Big Ten. Again, your whole mantra as a conference is SEC, it just means more. You need to start getting wins like LSU did in Clemson. That's a hard place to go win in Death Valley. Clemson does not lose home games. They don't. LSU went in, shut the team with, I think, the best QB in college football out in the second half. It was pretty impressive. And it was huge for Brian Kelly. He's kind of got a mini monkey off his back as it pertains to not coming out starting the season strong. Again, LSU's schedule is brutal. They go to play Louisiana Tech next week, but you got Florida at home, at Ole Miss, South Carolina, Texas A&M, at Alabama, at Oklahoma. So there's a lot more tough games the rest of the year, but I would argue, in large part because the Florida game is at home, I would argue they will not play certainly in a tougher environment or even a better team than they played on Saturday night. So for them to get that W, feels like it's kind of a worst case scenario if LSU goes 10-2. Now, it depends on who those two losses are to, but I think LSU, that win, it feels like, again, knock on wood, everyone stays healthy. Nussmeier is an excellent QB. It feels like that's okay. That's a college football playoff team, the way that I felt they were coming in. I think I had them at number 8 coming into the college football season, and very impressive win for the Tigers over Clemson. Very, very impressive. And really kind of saved the SEC some face because, again, as of late, SEC's kind of gotten their buck. I mean, they were 8-7 in bowl games last year. Like, we need to start having some signature wins as a conference, and LSU got one. They did. Second biggest win of the weekend came by LSU, so kudos to them. All right, be back in just a minute or so, but when we come back, Alabama, what was that? Coming back in 1 minute to talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide and why Kalen DeBoer may not be suited well for the Alabama and Tuscaloosa culture. Talk about that in just 1 minute on Car Ramp Live. Do not go anywhere. We're just getting started. Not great, guys. Just wanted to troll Bama fans for just a second. So, listen, I'm a Vols fan. And I got to say, when I went into the season, I did the first episode of the Vol View, or first segment of the Vol View on Friday's show. I had Tennessee going 9-3, which, by the way, folks thought that was kind of crazy. Looked kind of crazy after they beat Syracuse, how they beat Syracuse on Saturday. So I still feel good about 9-3. But I may have to replace one of those 3 losses. Maybe Tennessee slips up against an Arkansas, or maybe they do lose to Oklahoma. I had that as a win, but maybe they lose to Oklahoma at home. I'm starting to rethink that Tennessee going to lose to Bama thing, because Alabama went on the road to Florida State at the Seminoles, lost 31-17 against Florida State in a game where it's not just that they lost to a Florida State team that obviously was going to be better than it was a year ago. The 2 wins, bad quarterback play. Like, there was going to be improvements, of course, across the board from Florida State. Like, that wasn't going to repeat itself. It was how they lost. Again, going back to what I was just talking about a second ago with the fact that the SEC has just gotten mopped as of late. Or mopped is a bit strong. Hasn't won as many big games as we're accustomed to seeing the SEC win as it relates to bowl games, interconference matchups, all those different things. It was the fact that Bama got beat up at the line of scrimmage. It was the fact that the Alabama Crimson Tide ran for 87 yards. Florida State, 230. It was the fact that in a driving rainstorm at the end of the first half, which again, this is, I can say this as somebody who lived in Florida for 4 months. That is so Florida for it to be just a monsoon for about 15 minutes into the first half. I mean, you got Joe Chesator in the broadcast for ESPN like, boy, if it's like this the rest of the game, this could be trouble. Second half starts, bright sunny skies. It's like, that's Florida. It rains like crazy for 15 minutes. Half hour later, it's beautiful. That's why the humidity is what it is in Florida. I digress. It's the fact that in a monsoon and a driving rainstorm, Florida State pushed Alabama around. They pushed Alabama around at the line of scrimmage. That's not what we're accustomed to seeing from the Crimson Tide. Certainly under the greatest coach of all time, Nick Saban. And listen, before I get to Kalen DeBoer, let's give credit where it's due. I don't want this to just be an Alabama bashing session, although it's as a Vols fan, it's tempting not to do that. Can I give some love to Tommy Castellanos, who before the season said, hey, Bama better watch out because we're about to run up and down those guys. We're going to take it to the Crimson Tide. And folks, like myself, like, come on, man. Like, I'm not as high on Bama as some people are. Again, to go up to Paul Feinbaum again. And Paul, nothing against you, Paul. But he was saying that Bama at number 8, that's way too low. Doesn't look so good today. But this kid backed it up. I love it. Listen, I'm not crazy about quarterbacks talking trash, but if they back it up, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Tommy Castellanos, 9 for 14, only threw 14 passes, but had 152 yards, ran for 78 yards and a touchdown, was fantastic, especially given the weather conditions, especially given the defense that he was facing. I thought he was fantastic. So love to Tommy Castellanos. Love to everybody. Gus Malzahn by the way, Gus Malzahn is the Tide killer. Go back to 2013 in the Kick 6 game. Go back to, I think, 2017. They beat Alabama and nearly knocked them out of the playoff. 2019, they did knock Alabama out of the playoffs. So like that's Gus Malzahn has a history of giving the Crimson Tide some problems. And he did that in this game as the OC of the Florida State Seminoles. But back to Kalen DeBoer, who I have been about as favorable to, and I've said many times on the show, I think he's one of the top coaches in college football. Look at what he did briefly at Fresno State. Look at what he did at Washington with Michael Penix Jr. Like the guy, his coaching staffs are always great. Bringing in his OC from Washington to Alabama, I was going to give Alabama a huge boost this season. It still could. Like the season's not over. It just took a big dent. Some of that will depend on what Florida State does the rest of the year. But there's almost an element, and you were going to have questions about, I was going to have similar questions about LSU if Brian Kelly had started his career 0-4 in week 1 games. There's an element of, in college football, the pro sports are different. You can have a guy from Georgia be the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and it doesn't really make a difference, right? Like, because this guy's coming from all over the place, different backgrounds, drafted from different colleges all over the country. Like, there's not, because the vast majority of the NFL, with the exception of Green Bay, Wisconsin, pretty much, are big markets. There's stuff to do. It's multicultural, like the whole bit. That's not really the case in college football. Like, part of the reason that people have such a personal connection with the sport is because it's local, because it's in small towns, because Knoxville, Tennessee is never going to get an NFL team. It will never happen, ever, ever, ever. Tuscaloosa, Alabama will never get a team. Tallahassee, Florida will never get a team, right? Like that's Columbus, Ohio will probably never get a football team. Pro football team, obviously. So it's local, it's regional, it's like a community. And if somebody comes in and maybe doesn't quite fit the culture of said community or doesn't have ties to, at least to the conference, maybe it's not always going to be the best fit. I don't view what's happened thus far. Bama lost their first week 1 game in 24 years. I think 2001 was the last time they lost in week 1. Kalen DeBoer's 9-5 to start his career. I don't think it's an indictment on him as a coach so much as it is not an SEC guy. And that's not an indictment. There are some coaches that aren't Big Ten guys. Like that's the case. I mean, Ed Orgeron bombed at USC. That was never going to work. A Cajun guy coaching in Southern California, that doesn't make sense. Oh, but when he coaches LSU and he's saying, go Tigers, like, it works. Orgeron was a great coach, but he fit LSU. That was kind of the knock on Brian Kelly for a little bit. Again, he got a little bit of that monkey off his back by beating a Clemson the other day. So we got to see how that continues. But Brian Kelly, remember he came into LSU and he's like, I'd like to thank my family. He's faking the Southern accent. It's like, dude, you're from like Massachusetts. Like this doesn't work. I think Brian Kelly's from Massachusetts. It doesn't fit at all. Kalen DeBoer has no ties to the SEC. So it is a little bit of a clunky fit. Steve Sarkisian has ties to the Southeastern Conference. That's a part why the reason he's worked at Texas. Josh Heupel played college football at Oklahoma, which is now an SEC team, so it works at Tennessee. By the way, he coached at UCF before that, so like he's comfortable. He's used to this region of the country. Again, like it's not that big of an adjustment. Nick Saban went from LSU to Bama. Now, Michigan State before LSU, so that was an adjustment, but Nick Saban's the greatest coach of all time. So like that's Bear Bryant, I believe, coach at Texas A&M, then Alabama. Like this regional sort of tie-in to the local communities, that's a real thing in the sport. And I don't know if Kalen DeBoer, great of a coach as I maintain. Again, I know this is not a popular position today, particularly in Tuscaloosa. I get it. I maintain I think Kalen DeBoer's a great coach. I don't think you can just look at what he did in Washington and say, okay, that's all Michael Penix Jr. As big of a Penix fan as I am, and I think he's going to be really good in Atlanta this year, and I think he's going to be a franchise quarterback, that wasn't all him. As talented as he is, wasn't all him. There's a reason Washington went through, funny enough, the last year, the Pac-12, the conference was awesome. There's a reason he went through the gauntlet he did, beat Texas, and gave Michigan a little bit of a run there before Michigan ended up pulling away because they were the best team in the sport in 2023. I don't think you can just look at this and just, okay, that Washington, Pac-12 was pretty good at the end of their run. It was. They beat Oregon twice. Like, Washington was a good team last year, or 2 years ago when Kalen DeBoer was there. So I think a lot of it is a cultural connection that Kalen doesn't necessarily work there. The way that, obviously, Nick Saban would, but Saban fits everywhere is the go. The way that, a lot of coaches fit at their particular schools. Dabo Swinney fits perfectly at Clemson. He's a Southern guy. Like, it works. Lincoln Riley, by the way. Like, Lincoln Riley, the weird thing with him is, like, he fits Southern California. Does he fit the rough and tumble cold weather in November Big Ten? Bad year last year by USC standards, and we'll see what happens this year. Maybe USC will surprise people. I like Lincoln Riley. But fit matters. I mean, there's a reason. If you look at the NBA, you look at NBA history, the greatest players in the history of their franchises, didn't they kind of embody the city? Didn't Magic Johnson, flashy, kind of, exuberant and showing his personality? Doesn't that kind of fit LA? It does. Doesn't Larry Bird, kind of blue collar and really kind of rough and tumble? Doesn't that fit Boston? Steph Curry, flashy, innovative, changing the game. Doesn't that really fit the Bay Area and San Francisco and Oakland before that? LeBron James, doubted, but generationally talented. Doesn't that kind of fit Cleveland? Like, these things matter. Not to say that somebody like a Dirk Nowitzki can't come to Dallas and embody that city, which I think in large part he did, or Luka, before they traded him, embodied that. And I think he kind of embodies who the Lakers are now. Now he's in LA. Like, these things, Jalen Brunson, doubted, scrappy, fits New York. These things matter. And they certainly matter in college football when it's a sport that is overwhelmingly so. I mean, Miami, USC, UCLA, there's not that many. New York City doesn't really have a major college football college football program. Like, we really don't. So I think that's something that has hurt Kalen DeBoer in his time in Alabama. Now, again, we'll see how they fare the rest of the year. I thought they would miss the playoff. I actually said that they would lose to South Carolina this year, and the winner of that game would be the last team, to get into the postseason as that 11 seed. But listen, Bama's got Louisiana Monroe. They'll win that game. Wisconsin at home, they should win that easily. Then they go to Georgia. Listen, Kirby Smart has struggled at times against Alabama, but this game is in between the hedges. Georgia's lost, I think, one home game since 2019. Like, they don't lose at home much. Vanderbilt at home. They did lose to Vanderbilt last year, but Diego Pavia, that ain't happening. At Missouri, that's a win. Tennessee at home. I don't know. You see Joey Aguilar? Look pretty good. At South Carolina, that's a loss. LSU at home. I think LSU's better than Alabama. Oklahoma at home, and then Eastern Illinois and at Auburn. They struggle on the road against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and the Tigers look pretty good against Baylor. So we'll see what happens. But that was a devastating loss. Devastating. And I really like Kalen DeBoer. I just don't know if he fits Tuscaloosa. And that matters in college football. Doesn't really matter in professional sports because most of these franchises are in cities, multicultural, like the whole bit. Doesn't really work in college football that same way. Let's get to some comments here. What do we have? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, a lot of Florida State love from Patrick Brown, who's a big Florida State fan. Fear the Spear, love it. I'll say this much. The big third down completion to Squirrel White, by the way, former ball Squirrel White, started the shift of momentum, then capped it off with a touchdown run. That catch was insane. I think that was in the first quarter, if I remember correctly, where he laid out. Like Squirrel White did that more than a few times at Tennessee, just laying out for catches. I was bummed when he transferred, although our wide receiving core is still pretty stacked. But wishing him nothing but the best in Tallahassee because I think he's going to do a great job. Kudos, yes, 100%. Kudos to our offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn, for calling a great balanced game. Kudos to my DC for controlling Bama's run game. Loved it from start to finish, no doubt. The buyout for Kalen DeBoer is over $70 million. This goes back to the Vanderbilt game in which he put mousetraps in the locker room at the weekend they got upset in Nashville. Yeah, listen. Obviously, Bama, and Saban has kind of railed on this, but obviously, Bama isn't a prime NIL market the way that Texas is, the way that we're really all the schools in Texas, Texas A&M, saying in this SEC, Florida, Tennessee. But you're going to start to find out, depending on how this season goes, whether Bama fans are like, hey, let's start a GoFundMe for the $70 million buyout. Ryan Williams got concussed and Bama folded. I see a defense that was getting worked in gas. 100% they were getting worked in gas. They were mentally defeated and nothing could save them. Kalen DeBoer 4-4 versus unranked teams. Nick Saban 100. And this is unbelievable. Let me read that. That's a great stat, Patrick. Kalen DeBoer is 4-4 against unranked teams. Nick Saban 124-4. Insanity. Patrick. The U, when I think about this program, rough, rugged, ruthless, and rowdy, there's a reason they're referred to as the Convicts, a pipeline for NFL talent back in the day. And by the way, yeah, like Jimmy Johnson, great example. Jimmy Johnson fit Miami perfectly. Like, in your face, doesn't give two you-know-whats what anybody thinks. What was kind of, I mean, obviously the ESPN 30 for 30, the Catholics versus Convicts, which, again, you got Notre Dame and Miami last night, which was a fantastic game. But that was kind of the theme of it, was Jimmy was like, hey, show up on time, do the plays as I say you do them. Everything else, you do your thing. For better or for worse, you do your thing. Be a flashy football team, get in the other team's face. Folks are going to call you arrogant. Folks are going to, who cares? We're just going to kick everybody's arse all season. So, fits perfectly. Going to be getting, I see Arthur's in the green room right now. Hopefully Tim will be able to join in just a second because we're going to have a really, really special announcement on Carving Up Live. Not for Carving Up Live, but something I'll be a part of soon. But I did want to say, just on the front end, liked, and I'll evaluate, or I'll elaborate on this more on the Vol View on Friday. I got to say, pretty impressed by Tennessee's offense. Pretty impressed by my man Joey Aguilar. Can we show Joey Aguilar's numbers in this game against Syracuse? 247 yards, 3 tuds, completion percentage only 57%. He threw some passes high. You got to clean that up, but a little bit better than his predecessor. Can we see what Nico Iamaleava did at UC? Ooh, yikes! Against Utah, $136 yards, a touchdown, a pick. 50% of his throws were completed. 50 QBR, not great. Looks like Tennessee may have upgraded at that position. Almost like leaving Josh Heupel a stacked receiving core, and by the way, a lot of NIL resources for one of the worst teams in the Big Ten was not going to work out for you. But hey, who am I to question the decision-making around Mr. Iamaleava? Okay, we're going to bring on 2 guests now. So joining us first, he is the host of the Boston Sports Summit and a fellow Red Sox fan. By the way, Red Sox 2.5 games back at the top of the division, and he is also, unfortunately, for the purposes of the show, he's a Florida Gators fan. Would you please welcome Tim Barnard, who is joining? Do we have him? Oh, hold on, maybe we have him, maybe we don't. Hang on, I think we have Tim. Let me get this loaded here. Here we go. Maybe is Tim there? There he is.
There it is.
joining the show right now, and he's doing the Gator shot. Like, what are we doing, Tim? Why are you doing this to me, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm good. I'm excited to make this announcement. So great to have you on the podcast. Trying to get the right background going here. Do we have it? There we go. Okay. Joining us now is a Gryd Network contributor. He is also, by the way, the defending season 2 champion of the 8 o'clock spot. He is also co-hosted alongside me on our Big Game Reaction podcast. Please welcome Arthur Hurst to Carving It Up. Arthur, how are you, my guy?
What's going on, BC? Tim, what's going on? How we doing, fellas?
What's going
Listen,
on?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. By the way, that's a bad banner that was from a previous interview, so I apologize. We got a very exciting announcement, though. So, by the way, all 3 of our teams coming off of a W. Arthur, you guys taking care of Texas in the game of the weekend. Tim, you guys took out, what was it, Cornbread State? What was that? I think it was.
What? Even better. Long Island University.
Long Island University. There you go. And then my Vols taking out Syracuse. But let's just get right to it. We've got a very special announcement on the show. Can I have the drum roll, please? A brand new podcast to the Gryd Network, the Saturday morning tailgate show, which, excuse me, is going to launch this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time. Myself, Tim, Arthur, we'll all be hosting, and we'll all give our spin on college football, on our teams, on all the big stories in the sport. So very, very excited about that. I'll start with you on this one, Tim. Thoughts on the show? Tell kind of the folks out there what this is going to be about, what we're going to be trying to be doing over the course of this new football season.
Yeah, so we're kind of going to be, breaking down college football. We're going to have, of course, our top 25. We're going to talk about our individual teams. We're going to go into some of the big stories that are going on in college football, like the fact that Arch Manning is looking more and more like his uncles every day. A bunch of bums.
Hey, relax. Talking about a legendary football dynasty there.
The 33rd family in the NFL? Yeah. Okay. But no, it's going to be fun. We're going to be talking college football, a sport that all 3 of us love for, a variety of reasons. Of course, I got my Gators, Vols, and Buckeyes. Hey, all I can say is I've beaten both of you guys multiple times.
Oh boy, here we go. But you know what? I can't speak to Ohio State, Florida, but between me and you, Tim, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, vice versa. I guess 10 years. Gosh, we only beat y'all twice. No, we've beaten y'all twice in the last 5 years. So it's not.
Yeah, let's go back 20 years. Let's see how that.
Listen, that's in the past. I don't care what happened. What have you done for me lately, as Janet Jackson said. Arthur Hurst. Listen, again, your Ohio State Buckeyes got a big win. Talked about that at the top of the show. But your thoughts on what we're going to do with this show, your thoughts on kind of what you're going to be contributing as to what we're going to be doing all season long.
No, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm especially looking forward to the guests that we have on. Again, I'm a Buckeye, so I know a lot of Buckeye former players and stuff like that who I know I could definitely try to get on here and everything. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be our spin on it, and me, I'm going to be as ridiculous and saying whatever the hell I want. So, yeah, look forward to that.
It's going to be fun, no question about it. And I think what I'm most excited about is because we actually have been talking about this for a while, wanting to do the show. And as a network, the Gryd has been wanting to have a college football show for the last couple of years now. So the fact that we're making it a reality, go and put it up one more time. The Saturday morning tailgate, which will launch this Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And part of the reason we're launching it, Tim, at 10, I'll be honest, is listen, College Game Day starts tonight. If you want to tune into College Game Day, tune into College Game Day. We got no problems with that. But then tune into our show 10 to around 11 o'clock. We'll make our picks. And one of the things I'm really excited about doing is something I do on this show, and you guys will be doing on Saturday morning tailgate. Every Friday, I do a segment called The Vol View. I kind of talk about the latest stories and headlines in the latest game for Tennessee for about 15 minutes. You guys are going to be doing the same with your team. So I'll start with you here, Tim. A big segment revolving your Florida Gators. You want to get into that?
Well, I could say, with the Gators this season, I think it's going to be one of the most important seasons in Gator football history because depending on the health of our team and kind of how this goes, when DJ Lagway starts and finishes a game, we're undefeated. It's no question about it. DJ Lagway is that dude. And DJ Lagway, it sucks that this kid has to have all this pressure on him as a true sophomore, but he also has his coach's career in his hands.
Yep.
You know, and so the fact that the Gators beat up and basically annihilated Long Island University, you know, I know a lot of Gator fans are like jumping up and down for that. I'm like, that's great. But here's the thing. They did what they were supposed to do. A no-name school. They kicked the crap out of them. And I'm happy about it, but am I impressed? No, because now we're starting to get into the real part of our season, and that's where this is all going to lie on.
Listen, the SEC is, or at least certainly Florida's schedule is, and we'll talk about this, of course, over the ensuing weeks, is pretty difficult. So if they can get out of this like 10-2, that's probably good enough to make the college football playoff. So it's certainly a big season. I'm with you. I think DJ Lagway is an incredible talent at the position. I think it's in no particular order: Lagway, Nussmeier, and Sellers as the top quarterbacks in the top 3 quarterbacks in the SEC right now. No question about it. Although Joey Aguilar, he's knocking on that door. He's knocking on that door. Hey, just saying, he looks.
You
pretty
played
good.
Syracuse, cry me a river.
Syracuse or Long Beach State? What are we doing?
They're one and the same.
Oh, come on. Get out of here. Get out of here. Arthur Hurst, the game of the weekend, obviously, was Texas-Ohio State, and your Buckeyes came home with the defensive masterclass, 14-7. Matt Patricia got a lot of love. Obviously, Tim, as you know, the former DC and OC, by the way, of the New England Patriots, did a great job over there. What was sort of your take? Do you think a lot of Texas's offensive struggles, you credit more of that to Patricia, or some of it was, man, Arch missed some layups in that game? He missed some pretty routine throws.
But he missed those layups because of how great the defense was. The biggest addition that the Ohio State Buckeyes could have had last year was getting Caleb Downs from Alabama. Man, when he came,
he's awesome.
My goodness, dude. Man, you should have seen Columbus, dude. We were hyped. And you put that with Sonny Styles, you put that with Cody Simon they had last year, and that great defensive line, and you saw what happened, national champions. Now you're running back this year with another beefed up defense. You have Matt Patricia. I was mad we lost Jim Knowles. That hurt me. I was mad we lost a lot of our guys last year on the coaching side because I'm like, dang, 1 year and we win the championship and they're like, oh, okay, good, we're leaving. Like, no, like stay, like we can build something here. But the fact that you get Matt Patricia, who comes from that Bill Belichick tree and that New England Patriots tree and everything, Super Bowl coach and everything. So it's nice to have him here and being able to do what he can do with a talent like Caleb Downs, who can be everywhere on the field. And then you go to that defensive line. This was an amazing game of the two best defenses from last year, college football season. But when you go to that defensive line, right, 14 they had 12 pressures on them with a 4-man rush, only 4 men. Like, dude, that's freaking ridiculous, man. So just being able to do that, you make them go 1 of 5 on 4th down conversions. I'm not going to lie, man. I didn't watch a whole lot of the game. I was on the road, but I looked at the stats, and I was like, oh, snap. Our defense had moments. Right, our defense had really good moments because if you look at how Texas played against us, their defense, they kicked our ass. Like, we gave up more passing yards, we gave up more rushing yards, we gave up more yards per carry on the rushing. But when it counted, we got stops because, man, oh man, imagine if we don't make them go. I think it was like 5 of 14 from 3rd down. Imagine if we don't make that offense go 1 of 5 from 4th down. With the way they were balling. And the way with those stats looked at the end of the game, you would have thought, and they held us to 14 points, you would have thought that they kicked our ass, without a doubt. But the fact that we had really good moments in that game where our defense came up strong, our goal line stands have been strong for so long. They showed it last year, especially when it came down to the wire, and they showed it in this game when it really, really counted. This defense, as long as this offense continues to be able to grow, let Julian Sayin get comfortable in that quarterback position, because since Terrell Pryor back in 2008, he's been the first true freshman to step on a football field for the Buckeyes as the starting quarterback since 2008. So as long as the defense can keep playing the way they've been playing and this Buckeye offense can grow, this team is going to be so dangerous, and I can't wait to see. Plus, we got the number 1 player in the country in Jeremiah Smith. So, yeah, man, I'm really, really happy with how the they played Saturday against Arch, and yes, he had his moments. He did not look like a Manning, but I mean, hey man, credit to the Ohio State defense for playing the way they played.
Well, the goal line. Go ahead.
I was going to say, all I can say is get ready for the Matt Patricia no blitzers factor. The man hates blitzing, and he lets guys sit in the pocket all day long. So the fact that Arch couldn't take – and granted, yes, your D-line killed it, but I'm just saying, get ready because Matt Patricia, not as great of a DC as you might think.
No, listen, and that is definitely true, Tim. I am not disagreeing with that at all. And that's also the thing, though, where it's like, dude, you have the roster where you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You have this roster where it's like, yo, like, yeah, nah, like, you better go blitz. You got to do something. You can't just give.
They'll be sitting in the pocket all day long. Yep.
You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these guys are able to scramble. They're able to.
Oh,
I think we may have lost Arthur.
All right.
I mean.
Here he is. Maybe
Matt does throughout the season because you have guys who can blitz and really make that quarterback pressure on this team.
Yeah,
100%. I think that's again the goal line stand in the third quarter was massive. The fact that Arch was pressured as much as he is, Arch can't. The way he's very different from his uncle Zeke and actually move a little bit. We saw him run for a long touchdown last season. So like the upsides there. As I said at the top of the show, best news for Arch is there's nowhere to go but up. He can't play that much worse than he played against one of the top defenses in college football. Arthur kind of hit on something that I wanted to ask you, Tim. In terms of the Bill Belichick factor. So he's making his debut tonight as the head coach at North Carolina. They're playing TCU tonight. That game kicks off in about an hour, I think. Thoughts on Belichick? Obviously, you're a Patriots fan. That's partly why I'm asking you this question. So in terms of, listen, North Carolina's got like a middle-of-the-pack team in the ACC. I think that's completely fair to say. What are you expecting from Belichick? What's he going to bring to the table that you think could be successful at North Carolina? Or do you think this could maybe bomb a little bit?
That's going to be the million-dollar question because Belichick is a man who hates outside noise. Never liked it. Always says, ignore the noise, Yet he created one of the biggest media storms I think I've ever seen out of any New England Patriot, ever. And we're not going to talk about, obviously, the biggest one, but
sure.
It was wild and it was stupid, and so going into this, I think the man is, a savant when it comes to football in general. The latter years of being in New England, he was more concerned about being around coaches and players that he quote unquote liked and
yes.
Wanted to, just kind of chill with, it almost felt like, which, like, it didn't make any sense. Well, that's part of the reason why New England, before Vrabel got in, is littered with nepotism left and right, including Matt Groh, Elliott Wolf, both guys who shouldn't even be in New England. But when it comes to North Carolina, he's in the right conference for it because – while I agree with you, I picked Clemson to beat LSU yesterday. I'm still not high on Clemson. Florida State had a great game. I am not sold because I don't believe Kalen DeBoer is the solution as the follow-up to Nick Saban. So there are like a lot of things when it comes to the ACC that I'm just kind of like, I don't buy it. And I feel like North Carolina, depending on how this game goes tonight, is going to be a team that could compete for at least an ACC title or be in the hunt for one.
Well, listen, here's one interesting fact is, TCU played Colorado a couple of years ago when Coach Prime made his debut, and that was when they shocked the world. That was when TCU, they had lost a lot of players, obviously, but were coming off a national championship appearance. And so, like, there's almost this element of some of those players are coming back. Sonny Dykes is an excellent coach. Like, there's got to be that, hey, we played another high-profile game against an NFL legend coming in as a college coach. Like, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. And TCU, by the way, is favored on the road. If I could bring Arthur back in the mix, I did want to ask him this before we get out of here. As far as what you're looking at in Ohio State moving forward, and then I'll lead with this and then obviously promote the show. you look at the schedule, it's not murderer's row. I mean, at Illinois is a kind of tough. I think Illinois could sneak in the playoff, but Penn State obviously is a home game, and then you got at Michigan. Is there one thing? Julian Sand was actually pretty good. I thought he was relatively efficient, played within the offense, didn't make any big mistakes. Anything you want to see from Julian Sand moving forward as it relates to him playing this big competition? Because Texas is a great defense.
Man, the one thing we haven't had in a very long time is a quarterback that can pass and he can run. Like, that's one of the reasons I love
not since Fields.
Man, listen, I look, CJ is different. Okay, CJ was different. But with what we've been able to do the last, I want to say 15 years plus, we've had a guy back there that could run and he could pass the ball. And that's what made us so much fun to watch, and that's what made us so dangerous. Julian, he's a straight pocket passer, but he's going to have to learn, like, I'm gonna have to scramble, and I'm gonna have to run a bit. And the cool thing about CJ, and you didn't see it until it was that Georgia game, is that CJ that entire time that Ohio State didn't run. And people are like, oh, he can't run. Well, it's not that he can't run. He didn't have to. His O-line was literally doing everything they needed to protect him his entire tenure. And then when he got to Georgia, it was like, oh, so he does have legs. He can run the ball. Yeah, sure he can. But again, he didn't have to. So I'm going to look at Jalen and Mr. Sane and be like, listen, man, in order to really make this team dangerous, right? Because we have an amazing wide receiver core with Jeremiah Smith, with Brandon Ennis, with Carnell Tate. We have amazing running back room with C.J. Donaldson and Mr. Peoples and everything. We have the talent on the offensive side, right? But the quarterback play is going to be the number one thing that matters. And as his time goes throughout Ohio State, he's going to have to learn how to really use them legs to be able to extend the play, to be able to extend drives, to be able to really make the defense crack a little bit, because Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and those guys are going to need a lot more openings on that side of the field, especially when you play against really good defenses. And when you look at teams like Michigan, who comes in with really great defenses, and that's what killed us the last few years, we didn't have a guy who could run the football against them. But you look at everybody else that had really, really great games and were able to get wins against them. You had Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins. He didn't run the ball all the time, but he could run the ball. Cardell Jones, same thing with him. JT Barrett, Braxton Miller, Terrell Pryor. All of those guys were able to use their legs and weren't afraid to use their legs. If you're able to make defense have to come down and respect the fact that you can also run the ball, that opens things up for everybody else. And then when you're talking about getting Jeremiah Smith 101, when you're talking about Carnell Tate being able to get 101, those things are able to open up, because we're not just worried about the quarterback's arm. We're worried about the quarterback's speed. We're worried about his athleticism. We're worried about everything that goes on behind that pocket. Add in the fact that, again, we're not even really talking about the Ohio State running backs. So his legs are going to have to prove importance, not just this year, but until he leaves Ohio State.
100% agree. And I think, that disastrous loss to Michigan at the end of the regular season, where it almost feel like Ryan Day was trying to make a point not to throw the football to Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, Emeka Egbuka was there last year, and Carnell Tate. And so he kind of figured out more of like a balanced system, especially around the Texas and Notre Dame games. I think Jeremiah Smith had 1 for 3 yards against Texas. Like, just finding a way to beat you multiple ways offensively. Ohio State, I think it's fair to say they're going to open up tomorrow as the number 1 team in the country, and they've certainly earned that right. The defending champions, they beat Texas.
And real quick, Bryson, sorry to cut you off, but
no,
that's the thing, is like being able to beat you in multiple ways from the Buckeyes for the last 20 years was because our quarterback could beat you in multiple ways. Like, you didn't have to always give the ball to Carlos Hyde, because Braxton Miller was literally going to take it to the touchdown if he wanted to for that play. JT Barrett didn't have to give it to Ezekiel Elliott because he could take it to the touchdown. Justin Fields didn't have to give it to whoever his running back was, J.K. Dobbins. It's the same thing, bro. Like, the quarterback was literally the playbook. Whatever the quarterback wanted to do is what literally happened. Now, yeah, they didn't win. Braxton Miller had injury problems. Justin Fields wasn't able to get it done. But they were able to come up, and especially in the biggest moments, and they were the reason why Ohio State, for the last 20 years, ever since Terrell Pryor, really since Troy Smith, was so feared, and why everybody was like, oh, damn, when Saturday comes, look at what the quarterback is going to do, because they literally dictate everything. Ryan Day, he has his moments where he coaches scared, and that's why I believe we lost the game against Georgia those years back with C.J. Stroud, because once Marvin Harrison Jr. went down, then that's when it was like, we're going to be conservative. No, CJ has proven he can do this, right? Same thing against Michigan. Stop playing scared. If you lose, but you lose with your pride. You lose with your strength. You lose with your dogs. That's the biggest thing that you see from Urban Meyer to Ryan Day. Urban Meyer was going to win, lose, or draw with his dogs. He was going to win, lose, or draw with his guys on the field. Ryan Day, too conservative. And after that Michigan loss, he had to look in the mirror, and his job was on the line. It was like, look, we got to go out with our nuts hanging. It's like, bro, we got to go looking out. Who got the biggest stick? It's us or it's y'all. And damn it, I got the number one player in the country in Jeremiah Smith. I'm going to use my big stick, and I'm going to get the damn job done. And he got the job done. So hopefully he learned his lesson and is not scared anymore.
Well, listen, you obviously get a lot of confidence in winning a national championship, and obviously that monkey is off of Ryan Day's back, to say the very least. Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst, myself, we will be hosting a brand new college football podcast. It is called the Saturday Morning Tailgate. It premieres on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Gryd Network's YouTube channel. Us three will be on. Obviously, we'll have some guests on throughout the season. Cannot wait, fellas. I see a comment from my man Patrick Brown talking about Michigan and Oklahoma. That's kind of the big game coming up in week 2. So very excited to talk about that. The week 1 headlines, or the week 2 headlines coming off of week 1. Top 25, a whole bit. We're talking about all of our teams, Gators, Buckeyes, Vols. Can't wait. See you guys on Saturday, and have a good one.
See you, Bryson. Thanks, man.
Tim, Arthur, great stuff as always. Listen, I can't wait. And this is something, like I said, we've been talking about doing for a while. Actually, I can take the headphones off now. This is something we've talked about doing for a while in terms of getting more college football coverage on the Gryd. It's something that, again, the three of us are very passionate about. Something I've incorporated with my show, with the Ball View, with some college football segments around the playoff. But especially now with this new 12-team system, NIL, conference realignment, I think I talked about at the top of the show, it has introduced it has introduced the freedom to slip up against the best teams, even against bad teams. Like, again, Michigan was not good last year. They finished the season well, but they were mediocre. You can lose to Michigan and be fine as long as you took care of your business everywhere else. This is why I was critical of Alabama last year, where folks were like, oh man, they should have gotten in over SMU. Are they better than SMU? Probably. Yeah, their roster is more talented than SMU, but I can't put you in if Oklahoma and Vanderbilt would not have been bowl eligible had they not beaten you. And you lost to Tennessee. So I can't feel sympathy if you didn't take care of business in the spots that you were supposed to take care of business in. So that's kind of my take on that. So very, very exciting. We'll be back after 1 minute on Carving Up Live to talk about Bill Belichick, who will be making his college coaching debut with North Carolina in less than an hour. Talk about that after the 1 minute break. So very, very excited to discuss it. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Before we get to Bill Belichick, and again, this has been a very interesting show from the standpoint of we've done college football from start to finish, which I'll be honest, this is primarily an NFL show. We do talk plenty of NBA once the Super Bowl's over. It's an NBA heavy show, particularly once playoffs get here and free agency, which the new CBA has kind of sapped free agency, but that's another discussion for another day. I don't think I've ever done a start to finish college football show. And as a huge fan of the sport, That is very exciting. And again, we'll be doing plenty of start to finish college football shows again on the Saturday morning tailgate, which will premiere on this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Gryd Network. Myself, the two gentlemen you just saw a few minutes ago, Tim Barnard and Arthur Hurst. We're very, very, very excited to bring this to you guys, and we think you'll enjoy it. So definitely stay tuned. Bill Belichick making his coaching debut with North Carolina tonight. That game kicks off in less than an hour on ESPN. North Carolina at home against the TCU Horned Frogs. Here's what's interesting for me, and Tim kind of hit on it a second ago when we were talking about Bill Belichick, and it's something I've discussed on my show as well, is the idea that Bill Belichick is the ultimate, we know, do your job, no distractions, no nonsense, the whole bit. To where he has, I would argue, with the exception of Jerry Jones, because it's Jerry Jones. If you take NFL and college football, I'm talking players, coaches, owners, GMs, the whole bit, with the exception of Jerry Jones, and maybe even over Jerry Jones, has there been anybody who has had a more chaos-filled offseason, distraction-filled offseason than the man who supposedly, I've heard Julian Edelman talk about this before, against distractions above all costs? Bill Belichick. Has anybody had a more distracted? And by the way, we have the timeline. We can go ahead and show you the timeline. So he's hired December 14th of last year by UNC, okay? So it's fine. Again, we knew about the girlfriend thing, the age gap. We already knew about that. But then a couple of months later, HBO, hey, Hard Knocks is going to follow UNC this season. 6 days later, no, just kidding. Hard Knocks deal, totally off the table. Okay, then a month later, there's not a lot goes on. A month later, Jordan Hudson is on the field with Belichick at the UNC spring game, which is really UNC spring practice, but she is literally on the field. For those of you out there that panic about Taylor Swift is in a box. Jordan Hudson is literally on the field with the head coach, who happens to be her boyfriend. Continuing, it gets worse. April 27th, I remember talking about this and doing a segment on the show, the awkward CBS Sunday morning interview where, again, the multiple reports came out from, I think, the New York Post and from TMZ that they had to cut multiple portions out of that interview because Jordan Hudson continuously kept interjecting. And the shocking aspect about that is Belichick is the ultimate, like, Bill's his own man. Like, we know the hoodies and the really everything about how he goes about his business. And he clammed up like a shell when she interjected. It's like, whoa, that ain't the Bill I remember. So the awkward CBS interview, it looks bad for Bill, looks bad for Jordan Hudson. Put the list back up. May 6th, and part of the reason he was getting interviewed by CBS Sunday Morning is because he's releasing a book. He releases memoir on May the 6th. May the 9th, reports say that Jordan Hudson has been banned from the UNC facility. A few hours later, UNC refuted those reports. So it's like, okay, where did they initially get those? That Jordan Hudson's is not or was banned from the facility. NBC Sports was the first on it, which I feel like that's a reliable source. But then UNC is like, no, she's allowed to be there. And then August 24th, after Hard Knocks fell through, literally last week, Hulu documentary covering UNC is announced. So in fact, they are going to have a documentary following them. So it has been, listen, with all this distraction, you dang well better have a good season if you're Bill Belichick in North Carolina. So you start against TCU, who, by the way, I'm picking TCU. More experienced team, certainly the more experienced college coach than Sonny Dykes, who's been in a national championship, been there, done that. Like, Sonny Dykes is a great coach. So you start at home against TCU. I think TCU's going to win. At Charlotte, you'll take care of business there. Richmond, that's a win. At UCF, probably a win, but who knows? Clemson, you got Clemson at home, that's a loss. Clemson's way better than you. At Cal, I don't know. That's a Friday night game, short week. It's a West Coast game going from Chapel Hill all the way to Berkeley. Like, that's a long flight, a lot for college kids to adjust to. Home for Virginia, that's probably a win. At Syracuse, hard to tell. It's a hard place to go win. I'd say that's probably a loss. Stanford at home's a win. Wake Forest is a win. Duke at home is a win. NC State on the road, probably a win. So that chalks up to what? 9-3? No, I'm sorry. I had Syracuse 8-4 because I have TCU, Clemson, Syracuse, and Cal as losses for the Tar Heels. Like, this could be a brutal season for Bill Belichick. And if it comes at the expense of all of this drama, of all of the nonsense from this offseason with Bill Hang on, just cut out there for a second. Apologize to folks out there watching or listening. The show literally just cut out for a second, so we're back. I don't know if UNC cut the Wi-Fi or something, but we're back on the show. No, what I was saying is, though, with all of the Bill Belichick sounds like football first guy, and just about every single story regarding Bill had nothing to do with football. It's the ultimate irony that we've seen of this football offseason. I maintain, take college, NFL, no single figure has been more of a distracting offseason than Belichick, and obviously a large part of it due to his let's just call it what it is, strange relationship with Jordan Hudson. So I've got TCU tonight. I don't know if I like the -3.5. That's again experienced quarterback. Yeah, I'll go TCU. Yeah, TCU -3.5. Again, that if this were an NFL game, this would be on the Bryson's Bleak Bet segment. Again, as I always say, it's the one game each and every week that I have absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you got to predict them all. Cannot wait to talk about that on Friday. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on X, Instagram, and on Facebook. Again, very, very excited for Wednesday's show because Carving Up the Context is back as a weekly segment. We're doing it every week from here on out for this football season. And Top 10, Bryson's Best 10, Top 10 teams in the NFL, that is back this Wednesday. My top 10 teams going into week 1. Continue to follow the YouTube channel. Subscribe if you have not done so already. We're continuing to upload previews for each and every division from my prediction show last week. So definitely check those videos out on the channel. We'll upload some stuff, of course, today. But of course, the main attraction tonight, Saturday morning tailgate, the brand new podcast on the Gryd Network with the two guests you saw about 20 minutes ago. Tim Barnard and Arthur Hurst and myself will be hosting this podcast Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Gryd Network on YouTube and X and on other platforms. So definitely check that out. Cannot wait to launch it with those guys, and we're going to have a lot of fun to kick off your college football Saturday mornings. Have a great week, everybody. Have a great rest of your Labor Day. Continue to stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Joey Aguilar's the man. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Gryd Network.